Well, I am going to start by saying that no one could have been prouder. The country was not prouder. And this is 1977. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. But what was more important than this is the aplomb that followed the achievement. I'm talking about an achievement as the first black. Yesterday when I was promoting her, I said the most beautiful woman in the world. A caller called and said to me, universe, get it right.
Yeah, you
so when we got the most beautiful woman in the universe, we were very happy. Janelle Commissiong, good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here. Good morning. Good morning to the listeners as well.
It is great to have you here. I had my colleague Nigel broadcast smiling this morning because generally I would sit here and Nigel would assist us, and help us set up. He said to me this morning, "You're doing all the work. Why are you moving around so much?"
Is that why he programmed "You Light Up My Life" as the last song before we came into Brunch?
These things happen. It is great to have you here this morning. Thank you so much for gracing our presence.
Great to be here.
All right, there's a lot we have to go with you, and since Sharmain afforded me the opportunity of welcoming you with that beautiful smile, you have not changed one bit. All right, it has not. There's no depreciation. There is appreciation.
Yeah, I thank you for that.
And that is the truth. So I'll let Sharmain do that. In the meantime, I get our listeners all wrapped up in their diabetes with my sweetness.
And basically, it's Janelle Commissiong, who needs no introduction in Trinidad and Tobago. But I would like to say more recently, wholeheartedly, at least just last week, is it? The date says June 22nd, yeah? Penny, you went to...
Or to the schools, right? I did a couple of schools, Taiko, right?
Waiko and Tamana.
And then a day or two after, I did one in Marival, St. Andrews, yes.
And then just reading it is just that you went to primary school, and these are so many children so many years below your generation.
Yes, I was skeptical, actually.
And they greeted you with a roar.
Yes.
So that is what Prices is about, Bishop, because we've had so many different achievements in Trinidad and Tobago, and the value, Penny has brought new meaning to the value of a beauty queen in Trinidad and Tobago by the life that you lived after your reign ended for that time. So that's my introduction to her.
I'm glad the way you said it there because, to me, she has not been just a beauty queen. I think when I saw the way in which you look at the world and you look at the underprivileged people in the world and you looked at the dark side of the world, I'm being nice, looked at the dark side of the world and understood the need to lift young people and young women. I think it is manifest in what Sharmain just said, that you get out to the schools. And that is my question. In an era where folks have lost a disconnect with so many things, and young women see a pageant, well, they, unfortunately, a lot of them see themselves as a piece of meat because of the crap we have in the rap lyrics that tell them that they are less than. How difficult is it coming out of what you achieved and the example you set? How difficult it is for you to motivate young women into saying two things. If you went to a Miss Universe contest, don't be carried away only by the glamour of that, but there is more to be done, as I have done, one. And two, if you don't do that, you are not a stat.
Well, I think one has to look at the pageants as an opportunity, really, as I did 38 years ago. I was not typical, believe me. I was not your typical beauty queen. It's not something I ever aspired to. I did it as a means to, I just returned to Trinidad, publicity for business I was starting. So I think in great measure, one needs to look at it to see, okay, how can I use the opportunity? It's a great vehicle for people who are involved in the arts, acting, and any aspect of the arts. And it's also a great vehicle, as it was for me, to give you a platform, to give you a platform to move on, to do other things. So for me, that's what one looks at. Look at this as an opportunity and a vehicle, as opposed to the glamour and the prettiness, and because there'll always be people more glamorous, more attractive, more beautiful than you are. So you don't want to set yourself up. You don't want to set yourself up. And there's more to life than that. There's more to life than just the package. Really.
But do the young ladies hear you, or do they listen to what you're saying? Because again, sometimes you speak to people and you look at their eyes and it's like a deer in headlights. Okay, I hear all these things you're saying, but I'm not listening. It's not resonating in the material environment that we are. Is it resonating?
Exactly. It's, as you said, the material environment is difficult. I call it the Hollywood environment that we're in. Everyone, tries to live that Hollywood Kim Kardashian Kardashian lifestyle, which is not real. If only they knew it wasn't real. So it is difficult. I mean, when I get an opportunity, I do try, and I can see that I do reach. And I'm sometimes very surprised at young women who actually know who I am, and they go, "Oh, you're my role model," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm a bit surprised at that because of the length of time. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes those who are on the path of just the aesthetics and the looks, that's the path they're on. But sometimes, I do think that I do make the breakthrough. And more than anything, I have an issue with the word icon. It just sets you up.
Yes,
so
it
sets you up. So I feel if I can inspire people, like those young people, inspire women, then I feel I'm doing something and having that impact.
So are we going directly now to what you are involved these days? Because why would you be touring these schools? And what are you about at all?
Well, sometimes I say as little as possible. Because I've worked a lot for a long period of time. But no, I love to get those invitations, and a lot of them are invitations that I get. As far as the schools were concerned, I was skeptical because it's primary school, and I felt, oh my God, these kids are 10 and 11, so I was skeptical. But I was also interested, especially, Guayco Taman, I was interested in going there. And it was interesting. That was a very small school, a Presbyterian school, a small school, but it was just interesting chatting. Interesting from the point of view of asking them, okay, what would you like to do? Because I also feel to ask a 10-year-old, what would you, university and all that, right. We put too much emphasis on that at that age. So it was trying to get into the conversation, and I got into it with them. The long ride I had, it gave me a chance to look at the countryside and look at where I was going. So I got into it from the agricultural point of view. And things that they, would find fun talking about mangoes, the name of mangoes, things like that. I found out what you call some mangoes in Port of Spain, you don't call it. It's not the same. And then from there, I was able to take off into, different professions that one can consider culinary, which, is not something we talk about. I talked about a mango festival, and no one was aware that we have a mango festival here. We've been doing it for a few years.
A lot of things folks are not aware
so,
of.
I found ways to interact with the age group.
The guests you hear this morning, that beautiful voice is that of Janelle, Commissiong, Chow, and we are very happy to have you here this morning. And we are not talking about what everyone knows. Well, you can't get away from it. That is the center of it. However, you're working with young people, and we are talking about that whole disconnect with society. You moved off early from just having the title into doing service. I think service is very important for young folks, for people generally, but specifically young folks to understand that in service there is growth. Trying to get them to understand that and emulate an example, I think if they took the time, they would look at you. But here is the problem. We have instant everything. Everything is instant. And then the internet, of course, as wonderful as it is, there are many drawbacks because, as you alluded to a moment ago, the Kardashians, folks are seeing life that is photoshopped. And they don't see the need to go slowly and go through the changes. How do you bring them to understand, to differentiate between the unreal? Because in some ways you are a fairy tale to them. So in some ways you are a fairy tale until they find out, listen, she went to school. She was at New York Technical College, Fashion Institute. I mean, look, listen, she's back down here. She did a business. She was in tourism. They don't understand all of that. So how do you get them to not just see the glamour that is Janelle Commissiong Chow, but instead, this is a person using a platform to do service.
Right. I think you've got to meet them where they are. When I walk into a room, of course, the attention, because of the introduction, is the whole beauty queen thing. But I think in dialogue, you have to meet them where they are. Chat and see what they're about, and then get real. It's important you've got to be real. So I try to dialogue sort of on their level as much as possible. And just sort of turn it away from me and more into the people in the room.
Yes.
Because it's not about me. that much anymore, or it's more about the other generation. So it's about turning it around and getting real and listening to what they have to say. Because sometimes I'm surprised if you just listen to some young people, they think people 30 and 40 are very old. Huh? So
I'm not even looking.
I tell you, that's right.
Yeah.
So just breaking that, that and having the attention. As you talked about the social media last week, I say fortunate when I'm asked to do certain things, to be the guest speaker at Malik Folk Performing Company. They had their retreat. And that was part of what I was talking about, that now the performing arts, you're competing with reality TV, you're competing with what you put on on Facebook, you're competing with all of these, so that in itself is a challenge for performing arts.
Sharmain?
Penny, and I keep going back to the generation thing. No offense meant,
No,
because
that's okay.
you said you're keeping it real, yeah. But how do we? You say you meet them on their level as well. You know where they're coming from. How do we translate what you grew up with, the values that you grew up with, the values that you would have put into, like you changed for us what, at least for us, we had pictures of you that we looked up to on, all of that. Our parents instilled you into us, that you changed for us. What is the meaning of not just beauty queen, but also being black? Because it was the 70s, and it was at a time when there was this black consciousness rising and all of that. But somehow I get the impression that you fell into it, meaning that you were carried by a wave as well. That, okay, you won the crown and you were carried by the wave. How... And Bishop and I spoke about you having at the end of that year to crown
South
a South African.
Yeah.
Yeah, under political circumstances.
Yes.
As a conspiracy theory, there's this thing that they would have deliberately set it that way, that you would have had to do it. Can you just take us through that? Because we put you on that blackness thing, the first Black Miss Universe at all times. What is it? What is it about? What does it mean for you? Because you were also rebellious in your own way with the Miss Universe authorities as well.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy Miss Universe. Okay, where do I start? I think now I look at pageants. Now I even look at, women who have tremendous opportunities. And I say, boy, if they only realize what it was like. I'm still around. I still think I'm young enough. Back then, and back then when I competed, we were just there to make up numbers. We were no ifs, ands, or buts. We were. Again, I've said a few times this week. Whenever I talk about it, I thank Miss Bermuda, Connie Frith, because she started to make some noise, and they had to pay attention. Of course, they had to pay attention, and in paying attention to that, you then saw yourself the images in the newspaper on every morning, because there was tremendous international media there in the Dominican Republic, and it makes you realize how important seeing yourself, the image is. It's very important.
Very important.
It's
yes.
very important to see yourself.
Yes.
When you're just seeing the Caucasian contestants, it does do something to you.
People defining you.
Yes. So I would have lived that. Up until then, you started to see the change. Then I won Miss Photogenic. I wasn't very happy because I thought, okay, charity, right? In those days, keep you a little quiet.
Yes.
So I really wasn't happy about that. But then I started to realize that we were competition because, let's say, I remember Miss France. She was in the particular group I was in. And when we got on the bus to go wherever we were going, she would tell me I'm like a little doll. Oh, you're like a little doll. I was so cute. When I won Miss Photogenic, I was no longer cute. Because I was then competition. Because up until then, we weren't seen as that.
Up until then, she was patronizing,
right,
really. Yes.
Exactly.
Cute,
we weren't seen as that. So that living the experience, it, made me realize the importance of seeing yourself, the importance of the image. And it made me realize the importance of color. I was very busy during the year. It was not all great, and it was not all great on both sides. I mean, I had situations with African-American companies that would have invited us. I had situations with Caucasian. I mean, at one stage, I think someone even wrote a letter to the Miss Universe, one like those who are now in South Carolina.
Yes.
Protesting about taking down the flag. I got that kind of, those kinds of letters as well. But all through it, I guess I knew who I was. I knew I've never been insecure about who I am in terms of my color and my heritage and everything else. So that got me through it. I had a terrible chaperone, one of about 4. And I had a chaperone who just could not accept the fact that I had won Miss Universe.
That a black woman had won
Miss
Miss Universe.
Oh my God, she could not. Mm-hmm. I competed with Miss USA, and Miss USA was what was that blonde Farrah Fawcett? Or she was the Farrah Fawcett of the day, yes. And we competed together, and I beat her out. But then we had to room together because the pageant company owns both Miss USA and Miss Universe. Mm-hmm. And of course, Miss Universe got the bigger room, with the sauna and all of that. So that didn't go down well.
The plumbing was not very happy.
Right.
Faucet, but whatever.
And that chaperone could not handle it. Mm-hmm. When we came to Trinidad and all of the big, fuss was made, Mary said to me, "Well, Janelle, I don't think you're the most beautiful person in the world, And, my mouth is... Listen.
Hello.
Right. I said, well, Mary, that company you work for, they told me I was. And I was like, listen, lady, understand, Mm-hmm. So that had its difficulties. That's a
subset I really want clarity on. How long did Mary stay with you after that?
We... Probably about 4 or 5 months. We went to Venezuela, and at the airport, we had she was treating me like I was a child. And... basically, it was, listen, when we get back, one of us has got to go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And by the time we got in the limo to go back to the apartment, and I called the vice president, she had also called and realized she just couldn't handle it.
Okay,
she couldn't. She just couldn't.
Remember when you came back home, the reception, you were given the icon status.
Yes.
Yeah? How was that for you? Did you expect that? You knew that we would have been extremely happy. Did you expect that? You still haven't answered me about handing over to South Africa, and we'll get there.
Let me talk about South Africa. People will see it as political, and for the 3 years, things were political because Miss Israel crowned me. And in those days, Israel, and they were very big in the news. And then Israel crowned me, and I crowned Miss South Africa.
But then, Israel was big in the news, but then I remember your statement on being asked what you wanted, but you were asked a question at question time, and your thing was about peace in the Middle East, wasn't it?
Was it the Middle East or was going? No, I was visiting the Far East.
Okay.
Yeah, but when that competition was held in Mexico, and the reigning queen, you're there for like 2-3 weeks doing a lot of promotion. And when I got to Mexico and I was exposed to the contestants, Margaret Gardner was the winner. She was the clear winner.
That's Miss South Africa.
Miss South Africa, she was from my point of view, she was the winner. Even before they got on the stage, just watching all the women, she was, yes.
But did anybody put any pressure on you because it became an issue at home?
It was an issue just in Trinidad.
Just in Trinidad, okay.
Just in Trinidad.
Sharmain and I even had different takes on that because my thing was you take the ultimate beauty to crown one of my children. So that was my read of it. But Sharmain mentioned earlier that you fell into a situation. I think what also solidified this, and I know you're not too comfortable with the icon status, but what solidified you to a lot of people that you're meeting now when you're saying, well, I'm surprised you still remember, is because that came on the heels of a 1970 a revolution, an uprising here, an awareness. It just continued that thing that, yes, we no longer say that we have marched for that inclusion, but now here is our validity. Here is our Miss Universe. Now you take that and go to the bank. Well, we did go to the bank and finally got jobs in there. Sorry. So I think that put the whole thing in perspective. I do want to, if I can continue on, after you visited Africa, and you saw those eyes looking at you, I know it must have brought, because it's back to the point you said earlier. When people see someone that look like them, they feel that they belong. And I remember you took a particular kinship going in there, and I remember your regalia all dressed up in the outfit and thing. Give us that experience, if you will, please.
When
you traveled, when you were traveling, yes.
Oh, well, I didn't do much of Africa, strangely enough. I just did South Africa on a around the poles trip that we did. So I was just there for a couple of hours. But I would think I was just, anywhere I went, I would have been seen as different.
Was the enormity resonating with you, though, at the time while you were doing this? would you say? Or on hindsight, you see how important it was, is the inquiry?
Probably on hindsight.
Yeah,
It would have resonated in areas like New York, when I did New York. In those areas, parts of the United States. So probably in hindsight, yes. Yes, in hindsight. Yeah, there were some countries you visited as well that you could tell they weren't as receptive, huh? You could tell that they weren't as receptive. South America was great. Parts of South America were great, but there's some countries that you get the feel that they're not as receptive because they want that image that they've been used to, which is 5'8", blonde hair, etc., etc. And here's this little petite, black young woman, and so some adjustments had to be made on their end.
Politics and Miss Universe, is that something that at the time meant anything to you? Did you see a connection? Did you see the social statement? Did you see the political statement that you could have made?
I saw the statement in the Dominican Republic because at that time, which I'm not sure how much of it has changed, but the entire the political scene, it was more European. It was more the fairer Dominicans. The people of color were on the bottom. They were at the bottom. So I would have seen that when I was in the Dominican Republic. So which is why I think it was significant in a sense that that's where the pageant was held, and that is where I won the title.
A number of thousands of
Republic, yes.
A number of thousands of Haitians will agree with you. Nothing much has changed, but I digress. Sharmain.
Penny, in 1977, that was just about 3 years before the decade of the 80s, and the decade of the 80s brought in this wave of feminism and women's rights that was never before. But you being different, how did you? You don't have there's no definition for you. There's no definition because Beauty Queen doesn't quite fit. There's no definition. How did you handle that? How did you write? How did it, because you were in a different kind of position.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you're saying the 80s because I had this conversation with my husband a few days ago. And I said, I lived in the States, that my development happened really in the United States. And I was telling him the two things that impacted me that I think has helped to make me the person I am. And that was the Martin Luther King, because I was there. I was in high school, so I was impacted by all of the, everything that was going on. Hence my kind of understanding of the black the black agenda, because I was there for that. And also for feminism. I mean, Gloria Steinem, when all that was happening, I remember I was just about finishing high school in New York. So that it might have happened in the wider, in spaces in the 80s, but it was happening in other spaces in the, a bit earlier.
Yes.
So that would have kind of helped me to be the person I am now. Because it would have been before I was 18 that I would have experienced these things. The incubation period. Yes, yeah. So I'm very comfortable with feminism. I'm very comfortable. I'm silently, women's issues. I'm always doing, I'm on gender. I do the gender patrol. I look in the newspapers. I look in the newspapers. I look to see, okay, listen, time to move some of these old men and put some young women in the front rows. So I'm always doing the gender thing.
They are cracks all the time.
Always doing the gender thing.
But do we still need that in Trinidad? From where we've evolved, at least, you were watershed in it, all of it as well. Then we've come along this way. Do we still need to be as vigilant about gender?
Oh, I think so. And it just occurred to me this week as well that, wow, why am I feeling that women have been put on the back burner again? I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling that the society has become a lot more male in the past few years. I'm just feeling that.
Well, I think the evidence also support that while women been able to crack the glass ceiling, they're still looking up into it.